evening, and welcome to This Week in Joe's Basement. Ow! 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 I am Joe, and this is my basement, where we don't do retakes. All right, so this week in Joe's Basement, we're going to take a closer look and re-examine the moon blob, that oft misunderstood creature. And we're going to look more closely at its roles in American public policy in the late 1850s, and its continued usefulness in understanding and advancing nuclear particle theory. So, to get started on this, we decided to take this issue to the man in the street this week in Joe's Basement, the moon blob.
A moon blob is a synthetic moon creature in a plastic liquid state.
Reconstruct the moon blob from its dehydrated state by adding moon blob and ingredients to water and mixing.
Stir the water briskly with a fork. Slowly add the contents of the bag.
Water turning blue as ingredients are added is a good sign that a healthy blob is being reconstructed.
The water becomes plastic-like as the ingredients are added.
Pour the moon blob from one container to another to activate it.
Change the angle of the upper container and watch it defy gravity. It flows uphill.
Subdivide the moon blob into smaller moon blobs by pouring it into several drinking glasses or jars.
All of the smaller moon blobs can be mixed back together at any time to form a large moon blob again.
Anything that is creature-like has a limited lifespan. This is especially true of moon blob.
The moon blob functions best in its usual cold environment at the poles of the moon.
After some time, the warm atmosphere of the Earth will cause the moon blob to lose its normal properties and turn into a useless, thin, watery liquid.
Place it in suspended animation by freezing it in ice cube trays. Store it frozen until you need it.
Moon blob has unbelievable properties and is great fun.
Moon blob.
Fun to play with. It is a synthetic moon creature that becomes activated when you
Moon blob.
Activated when you add water to its ingredients. It acts alive and looks like
Moon blob.
protoplasm. It defies gravity by
Moon blob.
By crawling up and out of it
Moon blob.
Up and out of its container on command. Moon blob. 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 Moon
Angel hair. Good evening. Tonight's story is about the Queen of the Suburbs and speaks. In the turbulent 60s, I moved from a suburb of Los Angeles, California, to Hinsdale, Queen of the Western Suburbs of Chicago. It was in my freshman year of high school in Hinsdale, Queen of the Suburbs, where I first encountered the word speak, which in later life I considered to be somewhat ironic because in Tarzana, in the suburb of Tarzana in Los Angeles, where I had come from, there were lots of speaks all over the place, running all over the place, and you think that that would lend itself to people being called speaks and niggers and queers and wops and stuff like that all the time. I heard the word wop, but never speak, and that was funny because there were more speaks than wops in any case. So anyway, I encountered that in Hinsdale for the first time, and in later life that tipped me off to the fact that even though I had not been aware of it during high school, I had lived in sort of a cultural and social void during all my high school years, which turned me into the kind of speak that I am today. It turned out once in 1985 that I had to go out to a meeting in Hinsdale, Queen of the Suburbs, to do some bureaucratic business. So I borrowed a car from a friend of mine which had no license plate and was old and was covered with bumps and bruises and stuff, you know, bruises on a car, if you can imagine. And sure enough, since I was riding around in the Queen of the Suburbs, Hinsdale, I got pulled over by a policeman who took me to the station, and fortunately I was able to call a friend of mine and get bailed out for $50. I got a court order, not a court order, a court date later, a month later in Downers Grove, a much less prestigious suburb, I'm told, and I'm practically sure of it because Hinsdale, after all, is the queen of the suburbs. I went to Downers Grove to my court date, and this time I drove the same car, and it was still all bruised and ugly and old, but it had license plates, I made sure of that, and I wore a coat and tie because I figured it would be to my advantage as I speak in the suburbs to go looking good, you know, looking like a white person as much as possible. It was not easy for me to do that, you know, to put on this coat and tie because I don't like to do that kind of shit, but anyway, I did it for reasons of practicality. So I got out of court and I paid my fine and everything, and I decided I would cruise slowly back through my former hangouts in the suburbs. And I was going through Clarendon Hills, which is like the little sister of the Queen of the Suburbs next to Hinsdale, and I got pulled over again. And I thought, God damn it, this is discrimination. Here I am, a spick, dressed up and everything, but I speak, and they're pulling me over for no other reason. And what the cop told me was that there had been a kidnapping in Joliet. So the police in Clarendon Hills were all worried about slow-driving cars that didn't look like they belonged, and that was me, unfortunately. So I got pulled over. And, you know, I was thinking about it while he was explaining what the hassle was about, but what turned out to be my feeling, ultimately, that it wasn't because I looked like a kidnapper. And I tell you, I didn't feel like a kidnapper, but what I felt was like a speak out of place in the Queen of the Suburbs.
6:11. Night shift.
I gotta tell you, there's one thing about Colleen. So we were these best friends, and we were always either gonna go off to New York and become prostitutes or actresses. There's nothing in between. We were gonna be prostitutes or actresses.
Do you have a preference?
At the time, no. It didn't matter. As long as we made a lot of money and came back. I mean, actually, if I thought about it, I'd rather have been an actress.
Why?
But I don't think Colleen cared. Because that's what I always wanted to be from when I was 5. I hadn't always wanted to be a prostitute. I didn't even know about prostitutes. But later I found out.
Well, what did you like about being a prostitute, or the idea of becoming a prostitute?
We didn't have any job skills, so there wasn't really anything else we could do. And I don't know, with Colleen's figure and stuff. We just, it just seemed like a really good idea, because we wanted to buy a lot of drugs. And we'd shoplift in those days, too. But see, I don't remember. I just remember that we were going to do it, and I was really sad about it. We were doing a lot of drugs. We didn't really know what we were talking about it, and we had nowhere to go, and our life was like dead end. I mean, it could have been secretaries or something, but didn't know who'd want to do that. That's so boring. So Colleen got back with her boyfriend, and then we graduated from high school somehow, and I kept telling my friends, no, I'm going to go off to New York and become an actress. And then she had 3 kids, and I got married later, and then divorced, and became an actress. Yeah. But I was like married almost before all my friends were, and divorced before all my friends were. Just a fluke. I was like, it was a blind date. My girlfriend, who was also drug-free, because I got drug-free after school, after I graduated from high school. I was like 17 or 18. And this guy was drug-free, and so we had this blind date. So I went over there, And I remember we locked ourselves in a closet together that first night. We were hiding from the fourth person at the household. And just there was chemistry. I don't know. We became friends and then later married. And we didn't kiss for like 3 months because we were both trying to pretend that neither of us were in love. Because, you know, you get hurt and stuff. So after that, oh yeah, the first night we kissed, I was staying at his house. And I wasn't really staying there. I mean, we were up talking late and giving each other foot massages. And then I said, well, I should go. And then I kind of left. And then I kind of came back and knocked on the door. I said, well, you know, it's so late. Maybe I should just stay here. And he said, okay. I said, okay. I said, well, I'll just stay on the couch. It's so, you know. And then so I was on the couch, and he was in his room meditating. Oh, well, bad or good, depending. Well, not certainly to get engaged, but. So there were these mosquitoes, because Minnesota has a lot of mosquitoes, and the screen had a hole in it, so they were all over the place. And I'm on the couch, and so I knocked on his bedroom door, and I said, well, you know, there's a lot of mosquitoes out here. I was just wondering if maybe I could, you know, come in there and meditate with you, because everything. And so he says, okay. So we go in, and I meditate, and then I like lay down after the meditation and pretend I'm asleep, like I've just accidentally fallen asleep. And
he likes to meditate alone?
He used to meditate alone, yeah. And then one thing another, we're kissing, and it gets really romantic, and he's kissing me, and I go, well, you feel this way about me? And he says, yeah. And I feel this way about you. And I go, God, you know, I've been telling my girlfriend, my mother, my family for like a month or two that I'm going to marry. I met the man I'm going to marry. He's like, you too? And he says, and I say, yeah. And so we go, we both feel this way? And he says, yeah. And he says, well, let's call my mother. It was like 6 a.m. I said, okay. And all of a sudden I didn't feel very excited romantically. I started to think about things. And so we called his mother. She was really excited. She was like so happy. So after that, it seemed it was kind of embarrassing to back out, you know, in the wedding. So we just got married.
So in order to save face, you got married?
Yeah, but it was a nice marriage for a while. Yeah.
By 16, many reflections.
So, for the benefit of those of you who have never worked in the construction industry, I wanted to tell you a story which would clarify just how hard it can be to work in construction. This story actually goes back to the first job I had in construction. I was hired to work on a very large building that we were putting up. The building was about halfway done when I was hired. And I arrived on the job, and, well, frankly, from the very beginning, I had problems. Because the foreman that I had to work with, he was a really big guy, and he looked kind of like this. And it was just very hard to work under those circumstances.
554, widening taps.
So how come you don't drink anymore, Ed?
How come I don't drink anymore? About, I don't know, 16, 17 months ago, I got really fucked up. I was at this bar. I must have drank, this is no exaggeration, like 14,000 beers and 12 million shots, man. I was really fucked up, and I was driving my car home, and I don't know what happened, but like this telephone pole jumped out in front of me, and I smashed my car on it. And I got out of the car. I was fine, but I couldn't drive my car no more. So I started hitchhiking, and I was, done it. And this guy pulled up in this really nice car, this beautiful sports car. And I said, "You want a ride?" Sure. So I got in. We're driving along. I asked him to take me where I wanted to go or what direction I was going in, and he brought me right to where I had to go, right to the door. And then when we got there, it's like, "This is it," and we started talking. I said, "Thank you a lot," and he grabbed my thigh right here, and he started feeling it. He asked me if I wanted a blowjob. Now, see, I was really fucked up, and I was really drunk. I was at the bars on Mannheim are open all night long, and that's where I was. So this is like 6:30 in the morning. I was fucking blotto, and I freaked out when he grabbed my thigh. I really did, and I started punching him. I beat him up in his car, and I grabbed the car keys, and I jumped out of the car, and he started chasing me. So we ran almost all the way around the block, and then I jumped back in the car, and I locked the doors. So he was locked out of his own car, and I was still fucking drunk, and I started looking around. I said, "This is a really nice car." It had a leather interior, and it was beautiful. So I started it up, and it was a stick shift, and I was really fucked up, and I could barely start it. So the guy was pounding on the car, don't take my car, don't take my car, don't take my car, because I guess he lived in Skokie and this was out in Melrose Park. So anyways, I get it started and I'm driving away and he jumps on the hood. And, you know, it was pretty weird because like he was looking like in the windshield at me and shit, you know? So I said, you know, get off the fucking car. He wouldn't get off the fucking car, so I took him for a joyride. And I was going really fast. This is like 6:30 in the morning during rush hour traffic. I passed by a cop.
With a guy on your windshield?
Yeah, and I stopped again and I told the guy to get off the car. He wouldn't get off the car, so it's his own fucking fault, right? So I'm going faster and faster. The police are chasing me. I was pretty scared. I was weaving in and out of traffic. I came to this red light, and there was...
And you did stop?
No. There was cars everywhere, yeah.
You kept going through the red light?
Yeah, I went through the red light. I hit 3 parked cars, and the guy went flying, and I went through the windshield. But after I got off the ground, I started running, and all these cops were chasing me and shit. And when they caught me, I don't know if they beat the shit out of me or whatever, but I passed out. And I woke up in the emergency room. And I had all these tubes and shit in me.
You don't remember anything? What happened with the cops?
I don't remember this whole story. This is what the cops told me, actually.
What do you? Oh, really? So when do you stop remembering what happened?
I pretty much remember getting in his car, you know. But I was really fucked up. So then, after they, by the way, I had this, the homo guy, he didn't get hurt at all. He took this whole joyride on the hood of the car. He went flying and he didn't get hurt at all. I ended up in jail for like 6.5 weeks in Cook County Jail trying to get bond. My bond was $70,000.
What exactly was the charge?
I had 8 charges. I'll start with the smallest and go to the biggest. I had driving left of the center, reckless driving, DUI, too fast for conditions, battery, aggravated battery, possession of a stolen vehicle, stolen auto, strong arm robbery, and there was one other. They gave me like 3 stolen auto thefts on one car, which is really stupid. Oh, burglary to an automobile, saying that I went in there, and they call it strong arm robbery because I beat the guy up to take the car, which is kind of lame because then they gave me an aggravated battery too. So I don't know. Anyways, I went to jail and I thought about the whole thing. And
what was that like?
Oh, it sucked, man. Because, you know, I had either wished he got off the car, because then I would have had this brand new car to cruise around in, you know. But he didn't get off the car, so I wish I never wrecked my car. There's so many scenarios that I wish would have happened, you know. I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. But what I came up with was that I shouldn't get fucked up anymore. I haven't had a drink in about 10.5 months, so that's that story.
7:29. Love done.
6, 7, 8 years ago, I lived in New York in a George Washington hotel. I guess since then it's become an apartment complex. But it was very small and depressing. And I was kind of poor at the time, and I needed money for reasons of my own. So I met this woman through some mutual friends. She was much older than me. She was a widow, as a matter of fact. I would speculate her age to be about 65. She was pretty well preserved, though, for her age. She had a great body, I must say. She had large breasts and was still in fairly good shape. She had a slight mound over her, you know, not quite her belly, but just above her lower regions. And it was kind of like a painting from one of the great masters, so she was actually quite sexy for her age. And she was very lonely. And we agreed to meet at a small motel, a transient motel. And we did, and we went in, and I remember very well that the help at this motel thought that the whole thing was pretty funny. This elderly lady and this very emaciated sort of young man with a pallor and no doubt some sort of problem that was nobody's business but his own. And we went in and they smirked and sort of giggled beneath their breath, and she seemed to get sort of a kick out of this, like she was doing something naughty perhaps, and I thought, well, I don't care, I just need some money, and a couple $100, I don't care. So we went upstairs, and she had brought a bottle of scotch with her. You know, some people really need their crutches when they're gonna do the deed, you know. It's just, we can't possibly just do this because it's, you know, we gotta loosen up, we gotta get rid of our ambitions, but I didn't have any, I didn't care. So she asked me if I would call down and get some ice from the desk, and I did. And there was a knock at the door several minutes later, and there was this, I would guess to be middle-aged Hispanic man with only one hand. And in his one hand, he held up the ice, and I paid him, but he couldn't take the money with his other hand because he just had a stump. And he had a very strange look. It was kind of like this on his face with a big grin, like he knew something that we didn't know. I thought maybe they were taping us from behind the mirror. But anyway, he went on his way, and I go up to this lady, and she's, like I say, a very attractive widow lady, and she had let her hair down, and she appeared several years younger, and I started kissing her and fondling her and trying to basically establish a mood, because frankly, I was pretty wasted, and I just wanted my money, thank you very much. And she said, no, we have to talk first. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. So we talked, and she said, you know, I don't have a glass for my scotch. So I called the desk again, and this one-handed man came back with a glass and an even bigger grin on his face, and I started to get very annoyed by the whole thing, and I was starting to really wonder, could I do this, you know? Could I actually go through with this action? Well, anyway, she got a little bit drunk, and I got a little bit drunk, and I just started doing what I thought was appropriate, and she seemed to react pretty well this time, so before you knew it, we were naked, and we were in the bed, and we were basically just having sex. But she was a very strange woman. I get the impression that she was very frightened or repressed, and the closer she came to climaxing, the more she screamed, no, 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 as if her life was somehow, you know, in her soul was lost or something. But she finally did climax, and then we started intercourse, and she just kept repeating, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. And I kept saying to myself, what the hell is it? You know, what is it? I mean, you're talking about you, or are you talking about your vagina? What are you talking about? Well, anyway, we did this, and that was over, and she wanted to talk. So we talked for a couple of hours, and she was under the impression that the raging intellectual debate of the day was maybe Freud versus Marx, you know, which I thought was maybe kind of a moot point by now, and I wanted to talk about other things, like my $200. So I nipped the conversation in the bud and threw her on the bed and did it again and again a couple of times, and she said to me at one point, you really like to fuck, don't you? And I said, well, yeah, I like it, but I like my $200 even more. So she gave me my $200, and I went on my way and got what I needed to get, which is nobody's business but my own. And I suppose I should have felt ashamed by what I had done, or some sense of remorse, but I didn't. And that was that.
Moon Blob. Moon Blob. Moon Blob. Moon Blob. Moon Blob. Moon Blob. Moon Blob.
Moon Blob.
Moon Blob.